Well, I think we'll get started here. Welcome to e.law's Relativity Analytics webinar. I'm Jeff Jarrett, and I have with me Leonie Taylor. We'll just do a couple of introductory slides and then go over the topics that we'll be covering today. If you have any questions, probably best maybe hold them towards the end, and then you can type them into the text box, and we'll address those at the end. Okay, so just a little bit of background about e.law itself. e.law was founded in 1999, so this is the 15-year anniversary as of last month in March. Originally, the company got its start in the electronic trial space, so embedded with the courtrooms, and we did a number of high-profile commissions. Really, e.law's expertise focuses around being directly embedded with the legal team, either in the court or kind of at the review stage. Since then, over the years, we've moved back along the chain to provide now kind of the full life cycle of services. So collection, forensic collections, e-discovery processing, bureau services such as scanning, printing, photocopying, online case room hosting, and then, of course, still in the e-trial space. Generally, we do work in all of the Australian capital cities with a few clients in Asia, Europe, and Canada as well. A bit of background on myself. So I got my start at the U.S. Department of Justice. In New York, I worked a number of fraud cases, white-collar fraud cases. I was also a freelance consultant to several New York City law firms for a number of years. And then about 5+ years ago, I moved to Australia and started working for e.law. Here, I'm the software products manager. So basically, I'm kind of living and breathing relativity most days. And also with me is Leonie Taylor.
Hi, everyone. So my background is as a litigation lawyer. I practiced both in Sydney and in London. I then moved into the e-discovery world and worked as a consultant for a large e-discovery company in London for 5 years. And I've since returned, obviously, to Sydney in 2010, and since then I've worked as an electronic evidence consultant for e.law. So I'm sort of working closely with the lawyers on various projects and helping them get through the e-discovery process. So I'll just go through the agenda for this webinar. So we're just going to talk about a few things as well as a demonstration of relativity analytics, which Jeff is going to do. So the points we're going to cover are the need for analytics, how it works, what is analytics, how does it work, 7 main features of analytics, in what scenarios analytics can be used, the benefit to lawyers, market context, and market trends, and then Jeff will finish that off with a demonstration. So firstly, I guess there might be some people on the call today who are not very familiar with technology such as analytics and maybe asking the question, why is there a need for a technology such as analytics? There are so much advanced review software out there, and all these different types of technologies assist the discovery process, so why do we need yet another tool? I guess to answer that, we would say that historically firms would use the process of linear review of documents or keyword searches to get across their document set for discovery. These sort of, methods such as keyword searches can become ineffective, and they've proven to sometimes be ineffective, especially on large data sets. And what analytics seeks to do is partially enhance these keyword searches as well as partially replace them in some instances. And I guess at a minimum, what we would see analytics doing is providing a better way to search across your documents, and at a maximum, it provides insight and direction into your set of documents, so you get to the priority documents first. Also, we would say that analytics seeks to assist the human reviewers to review larger amounts of material more effectively and in less time.
Leonie, what would you say are the problems with keyword searches on very large document sets that your clients see?
Yeah, I guess we've seen a lot of instances where the keywords are either too broad, so you bring back too many documents, which can be quite unwieldy for the legal team to look through, or they can be then quite specific, so that you're going to miss a lot of documents that perhaps are very key documents that might not contain those keywords.
Sure.
We thought we'd add this slide in here because we know that I guess the analytics technology can be referred to by many names depending on, I guess, the company you talk to or other people who have used it. So, we've seen, obviously, analytics is the main term, but it's also referred to as concept searching or predictive coding, technology-assisted review, and clustering technology. So some of these names are like specific to a particular brand, or they're just referring to specific features of analytics, but and they're often used interchangeably and often incorrectly. So we just wanted to note that all of these sort of terms are using the analytics technology which we're going to talk about and demonstrate.
I've seen that computer-assisted review as well on that list. So I'll chat a bit about how the actual software works. I guess a traditional keyword engine, it builds an index by basically searching through all the documents in your case, and it kind of notes down every time a word appears and notes what document that word appears in. So it's really just like an index at the back of your kind of traditional paper encyclopedia. You flip to the back, you look up a word, and it tells you what page is in the book that word's on. That really is all that a traditional keyword search index does. So the analytics engine, at its start, it works in a similar way. It analyzes up ahead of time. It analyzes all the documents in your case and all the words. But instead of just building that kind of traditional encyclopedia index, it actually builds, imagine that it kind of fills a room, maybe a three-dimensional space, and in that space it starts dropping words and documents, and words that are closer together are conceptually related, and words that are far apart are not conceptually related. The relationship between the words and documents is defined by distance in that three-dimensional space. So on this slide, I've drawn out that three-dimensional space. So kind of the two documents in the top right, these are similar documents in content, and so they're located close to each other in this three-dimensional space. Other documents, which are totally different, are located kind of on the other end of that room, so to speak. So when we actually ask the analytics engine to find us documents that are conceptually related, or words, we feed it in a word or a document, and it just draws a circle kind of in that, really a sphere in that three-dimensional space, and then finds all the other words or documents that are close to the document that we fed into it. So hopefully you can imagine that kind of three-dimensional index. Now, even if you are imagining it correctly now, it's actually not a three-dimensional space. I've been describing that incorrectly. It's a 100th dimensional space, but that's pretty much impossible to visualize. So we'll stick with the three-dimensional space for the time being. So just keep that in mind as we start to show you some of the results. Keep in mind it's going back to that kind of three-dimensional space. There's 6 or 7 really main features of analytics, and we'll be demoing most of these today. The first one is called clustering. So clustering is where you might receive, say, 10,000 documents from your client or from the other side, and you're faced with the problem of where do you start? How do you attack these documents? Leonie, what would you say traditionally would be a way that your case teams would attack 10,000 documents they just got dumped from their client or from the other side?
I mean, ideally, I guess if it was broken up into people's documents, you might go for the priority person first and look for that, or you might run keywords across it.
Maybe dates as well, yep. Maybe some date ranges, something like that. So you have a few traditional tools. Analytics works quite differently in that we would, and the clustering specifically, where we would point the engine at those 10,000 documents, and we would ask it to create a number of subclusters. So what it would do is it would analyze the 10,000 documents, and it would come back and say there's 15 main clusters that these documents are basically talking about, and then it would assign each of those clusters a certain number of documents against them. How this works then is we would show you the results. The senior associate would start glancing at a few of these clusters. It titles them, so it gives us some insight into what's in each of these clusters. And then, we can usually determine which are the relevant clusters and which are the not relevant and assign them appropriately to reviewers. So this way, reviewers are, one, reviewing the most likely to be relevant material first, and they're reviewing conceptually related documents. So it's not, your classic date order where you could be talking about a number of things and jumping back and forth between topics. This way it's much more efficient because you're focusing on just one topic of information. The next feature is keyword expansion. This is where we actually feed in a word into Relativity, and it spits back kind of a thesaurus. But it's a customized thesaurus only for this data set. So, historically you might give it a word. One of the demo words we use is fraud in the Enron case. And if you put in the word fraud, in a traditional thesaurus, you'd expect words like deceit and theft. If you put it into the analytics engine, it comes back, in the Enron case, it comes back saying Arthur Andersen is most related to fraud. And it's starting to learn from the document set what terms are related. So it's quite useful when you're not familiar with all the industry terms that are being used, or your client is actually hiding something. So we'll show that, of course, in the demonstration part of the demo. The next feature is concept searching. This helps where, let's say you find a document or some language. Say you have a sentence that you want to use that you know is an important sentence. The problem with keyword searching is every word has to really be exactly right when you put in that sentence. What concept searching does is you can actually feed in a sentence or a paragraph, and in a way, actually, the more data you give it, the better it'll get. So the syntax does not have to match perfectly. The exact words don't have to be used, but it'll bring back, a number of documents that it thinks are similar to that concept, and then ranks them in the order of most conceptually relevant first. So it just gets away from having to worry about syntax. Leonie, what would you say about the difficulty of using syntax when you start to get into complicated keyword searches?
Well, yeah, you're going to bring back a lot of probably false positives, basically, would be the main result.
I found you also have to start to become a bit of an expert in the syntax of keyword searches, which, is maybe we're experts, but all of our, legal clients, we don't want to have to become experts in searching technology. Really, you want to just be able to type in that key paragraph and then find the documents related to it. The next is similar documents. This works in a normal way. I would say traditionally, if you find a great document, you want to find more like it. So you start to pick off kind of keywords off that document and then search for it. But we end up with the same problem where you're searching for keywords. You may end up with too many not relevant documents. So similar documents, you can feed it one or a collection of documents, and it uses all the words in that document and finds you conceptually similar documents. The next is categorization. This is where it's a bit like it starts like similar documents. You find, say, 20 documents related to a specific topic. You feed it into the engine. It brings back maybe a few hundred or a few thousand that it thinks are related. But then you start to train the system. So you actually start to say, well, no, of the extra ones you brought back, no, this one is not relevant to that topic. Yes, this one is. And then you feed those results back into it. So you actually start to train the system on what you're actually looking for, and it starts to learn from that process. The next kind of feature, assisted review, actually builds on that last feature. And this is really what you're probably hearing a lot about in the news and some journal kind of articles. And this is where you can take a very large set of documents. Later I'm going to show you an example where we use 1 million documents. And you're able to train it on a small set, say 1,000 documents. It then learns, and this is just for relevance, yes or no. So it learns, you teach it, relevant yes, no on those 1,000 documents, and it applies that logic across the rest of the 990-odd thousand documents in the case. And it comes back and it says, 65% are, 2/3 are relevant and 1/3 not, based off your coding. But it gives you, uses the power of statistics to help tell you kind of how sure it is. So it might say, after one training round, I'm only 80% sure that the results I've given you, that 2/3 are relevant and 1/3 is not relevant, is correct. We'll talk a bit later, but the courts have actually said you need to be a certain percentage. It doesn't have to be 100% confident, but maybe it's 95% confident. In which case, then you keep training the system. So you pick another 1,000 documents, and you tell it, yes, you got this one right, no, you got this one wrong. It learns from that and comes back and says, all right, well, I said 2/3 were relevant. Actually, 75% are relevant and 25% aren't. And now I'm 85% sure. My confidence level is 85% sure. And basically, you keep doing that iterative process until you get to 95%. That's really one of the big kind of features that gets a lot of press because in theory, you can review 1 million documents with a very high level of confidence, but actually only reviewing a small section, maybe 10,000 of them. We'll talk a bit later, too, about what the courts are weighing in on this and actually saying sometimes this kind of review is better than an actual human review where 10 human reviewers review every single document. Okay, and finally, the last feature, which is kind of a bonus feature for analytics, not a core feature, is near duplicate detection. So this is really, it's a problem in every case. How often do we do duplicate reviews? Almost all of our cases, yeah. Really, duplicates creep in everywhere. And this is actually finding identical documents and sorting them out. And if we have time at the end of the demo, we'll cover this. But it's a really nice feature for grouping suspected duplicates together and then showing the differences between them.
And this is different to electronic duplicates, of course.
Sometimes we get handwritten, printed out, kind of scanned-in documents, which maybe have handwritten notes compared to, say, an electronic version. It'll group those together and then spot the differences. But I can't tell you for certain that they're the same because we can't read the handwriting. Okay, next slide. There are some limitations to when this software can be used. The first is we need just a certain number of bulk documents, a certain number of documents to be able for the algorithms to work properly. So we say 25,000. We've run it on as low as 10,000, but kind of the more documents that are fed in, the bigger kind of an index it's able to create and a more accurate universe that it's able to develop. So the algorithms used are called latent semantic indexing, which is a technology that's been around for about 40 years, but only recently being applied to the legal review space. The other kind of requirement we need is documents that have a significant amount of body text. And what I mean by that is analytics does not rely on the party information, the to's, the froms, the CC's. In fact, we exclude that from the analysis. So really we analyze the content of the document itself, so what's being discussed within kind of the four corners of the document. We don't use any of the metadata that you might see with email threading or other kind of searching technologies.
So I guess what lawyers would be asking is, like, how does this benefit me? It's a lot to get their head around this type of technology, and they obviously want to see a good benefit for their case. And we've identified, I guess, there are four main benefits to the lawyers. So speed being the first one. So this type of technology allows the lawyers to target their key documents very quickly, getting to those most relevant documents and getting a handle on their case very early on in the piece, which obviously makes the lawyers look a lot better to their clients. Efficiency. So what Jeff touched on before is reviewing conceptually similar documents is more efficient. If lawyers or reviewers are going through documents that are talking about different topics, it can become a slower process because they're having to jump in their heads between topics. But if they're reviewing documents that are of a conceptually similar nature, they can get through them a lot more quickly. And consistency, again, Jeff touched on this, but what the comments on some of this technology have been is that the technology is actually more consistent than putting a whole team of junior reviewers on looking at a large document set, whereas at least the technology will be consistent in the decisions that it makes, particularly on the categorization and the assisted review front. And lastly, of course, which is probably the biggest thing, is cost savings. So with all of with the above three benefits, speed, efficiency and consistency, this should reduce the whole cost of discovery because you're not spending so many hours reviewing documents, you're getting technology to help you along the way. And this is, of course, the main force that's driving the adoption of this technology and why it's being used so much in the US and in the UK and starting to get a little bit of an uptake now in Australia as cases get larger and larger. So we're just going to mention a few case studies that we've worked on. We've ourselves here at e.law, we have quite a few cases now where analytics is used or various features of analytics is used. Jeff, I know, worked on this first one. This is, I guess, one of the bonus features of analytics, not fundamentally an analytics feature, but there was a case where near duplicate detection was obviously very important. Jeff, did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and this was an interesting one where we had lots of contracts for financial products over about a 10-year period, and there was a contract for each year. And what they were looking at was changes in the terms and conditions. And so what the lawyers initially were going to do, we're going to have to print out everything, sit in a room, sort out, find all the related financial products, kind of line them all up side by side, get out the magnifying glass and look through all the terms and conditions and try to look for changes over time. And look, we could have done it this way. It just would have taken quite a while, and the poor lawyer who had to strain his eyesight, I felt for him. So what we did instead was we used this software. We loaded everything into the review system, and then the software actually lumped all the similar contracts together, and then the software shows you, it highlights the differences between the contracts. So it just highlighted all the lines in the terms and conditions, which, were 99% the same. It highlighted the differences, and then they were able to just immediately jump to where the differences were and note that and in preparation for their case. So, look, in this case, could have done it without it. It just would have taken weeks and weeks, and instead really just took a couple of days and took the grunt work out of it.
The next case study we have listed there is in relation to the find similar type feature of analytics. So this is a case that's still live at the moment in Relativity. It's a 2 million document database. The lawyers had reviewed and identified several hundred key documents in the database, and they were trying to find other documents that were also related by using keywords, which was basically returning too many hits and was just going to be too cumbersome for them to review all of those. So instead they used the find similar and then the categorization feature to bring back conceptually similar documents, which basically meant the set that they had to review was a lot more specific and specific to the key issues that they were wanting to look at. And it just, it reduced the amount of time they need to spend on those particular types of documents. And then the last case study we have here is clustering. So, I mean, clustering can be used in lots of different scenarios, sometimes at the start of a matter when you've got a whole, like a big data set where you don't know where to start. But it can also be used primarily for plaintiff firms, I think, sometimes where, you know, they maybe don't have a huge review team because obviously on their side of their matter they don't have many documents that they've discovered, but what the defendants discovered to them is quite substantial, and they physically can't review, you know, that many documents in their team. And this is one example where 100,000 documents were discovered by a defendant. The plaintiff law firm used the clustering technology to apply clusters to these 100,000 documents so that they were grouped into about 10 different clusters that were of conceptually similar theme, and then by those clusters they were at least able to identify ones that seemed to be less relevant, so not as a priority to get a handle on in the first instance. So they just were able to prioritise their review. They got to the key documents quicker, and yeah, just able to manage their case better at this point in the game. So now we're just going to have a couple of slides on market context and market trends. So just a couple of comments here on market context. We've already mentioned that, you know, the analytics is used heavily in the US and in the UK. Obviously, the US is a very litigious country, and the document volumes are huge compared to, you know, the average document volume probably here in Australia. But what we're seeing is that more and more people are starting to ask, you know, whether analytics could help their case. There still are a lot of law firms that are very protective of, you know, their billable hour and not wanting to perhaps take on new technology. But some law firms just don't have that choice anymore, and they've got pressures from their corporate clients who themselves are becoming more experienced in what technology is out there, so know that certain things can be done in a more efficient way. And also, you know, there's the pressure to offer more competitive rates, where, you know, and that's where the lawyers need to perhaps look to technology to make their whole case run more efficiently.
I think I might just add, you know, I'm out kind of demoing this software often to kind of prospects, and I get two reactions. One of the reactions is, you know, look, we don't want to use this because it'll make us review documents faster and reduce our billable hours. And, you know, that's how law firms make money, is by the billable hour. And then they're right. It will, in the short term, it would, you know, from a kind of black and white perspective, it would reduce basically the profit that they can make on a job. Now, I get another reaction from other customers, and that is they think, wow, I can use this as a competitive edge when I'm pitching for work to my corporate clients. I can say we're going to be cheaper than, you know, ABC law firm because we have this fantastic technology. And I think that, you know, we'll see kind of more of that, you know, where savvier law firms are embracing technology and able to use it as a competitive edge. So I guess we'll kind of see how that pans out. But certainly I'm getting kind of different kinds of feedback, I guess, depending on the firm.
And then just a couple more comments on market trends. So what we're seeing is obviously cases are getting larger, even though the claim size may remain the same. So we've had a few cases where the claim size is the same. The cases, obviously, there's millions and millions of documents or hundreds of thousands of documents, but their client will give them a strict budget for e-discovery, for example, which means, you know, they are forced to use technology because there is no other way to physically run the discovery exercise. Also, analytics is gaining acceptance. We're seeing that more. Certainly 2 years ago, I don't think we had any cases, or certainly no cases that were using analytics, whereas, you know, this year we've seen a lot more uptake, and it's almost become a standard standard option that law firms will take up in cases when they use relativity, so, particularly if they've got a document set that's perhaps over 20,000 documents. And then there's obviously the international momentum. You've got the De Silva-Moore case. Judge Peck in the US, he made a couple of comments. He's quite vocal on this type of topic. He said, in his judgment, he made comments such as the superiority of computer-assisted review to the available alternatives, such as manual review and keyword searches. He said, neither a magic Staples easy button solution nor perfect, but it was better than the alternatives, explaining that the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure do not require perfection. And lastly, he made a comment, what the bar should take away from this opinion is that computer-assisted review is an available tool and should be seriously considered for use in large data volume cases where it may save the producing party or both parties significant amount of legal fees in document review. Now, I mean, Judge Peck, interestingly, is actually coming out to Australia in June. He's going to be talking at the annual e-discovery conference where a lot of lawyers and litigation support professionals attend. So it'll be quite exciting to see him speak and see him make some further comments about this topic.
I think what was interesting is how he's saying it's not perfect. The U.S. system doesn't require perfection, but the alternatives, manual review and keyword searches really aren't perfect either.
That's right. And
kind of admitting that, is I think, quite interesting.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see what he thinks about kind of the Australian market and his take on that in June when he's down here. Okay, well, now we'll switch over to the analytics demonstration. I'm going to cheat a little bit. One of the features, the assisted review, I can't really demo it because it involves reviewing several thousand documents, but I'll just show you 2 slides on it. This is really where we have that 1 million documents. We create a sample set of maybe 1,000. We review it. Relativity gives us some analysis on what it thinks of the rest of the document set based off our 1,000. We further train it and validate or invalidate its results, and then it runs through the process again. The next slide shows that, how each time as we go through it, it learns a bit better and ups that confidence rate each kind of iteration we go through. Okay, I'm going to close the slideshow and jump over to a screen share. So you should now be able to see my screen, and we're actually logged into Relativity. So the first feature I'll show you is keyword expansion. So what this means, how this works, is we can actually, this is our customized thesaurus. We can type in a word, and we'll get a number of related words to it. Now, this is the Enron data set, so this is the massive accounting fraud in the early 2000s when it all came to light. So one of the things they were doing is they were hiding losses at the company in kind of off-the-book entities that supposedly were partners, but really were secretly controlled by the CFO. So we had all these arrangements. So let's look for the word arrangement in here. And we come out with a number of terms. So a couple of these, co-investment, vehicles, that kind of makes sense. But LJM, I mean, what's that? We don't really know. Let's click on it, and now we'll run LJM through the keyword expansion. So it kind of gives us a definition of this, of what LJM is. So co-investment, Fastow, that's Andrew Fastow, the CFO. Cayman Islands. This is actually where these off-the-book entities were being incorporated, within the Cayman Islands. Partnership, vehicles. So LJM is actually a name of one of the off-the-book entities. So we're able to kind of use this keyword expansion to really, from an investigative kind of a point of view, and actually help us kind of generate better, more effective keyword searching. So we're still using keyword searching, but we're kind of getting assistance with it to make sure that we're using the right keywords. Okay, let's look at some inline concept search. So first I'm going to run a traditional search. Apologies for the Americanisms, but we're going to search for the word Thanksgiving. So we search in here, we come up with 580 documents, and let's go ahead and jump into one of the documents. So the document that pulls up, it has to do with fantasy football. So we have a number of paragraphs in here. Let's pretend for a moment that this paragraph was a really important paragraph in our case. So we highlight it, and we right-click on it, and we ask Relativity to do a concept search on just this paragraph. So what it does is it gives us our results in the bottom right here. It's found 360 documents, and we can see a lot of these other ones are fantasy football, fantasy basketball, lots of other college basketball, lots of other related, conceptually related documents to just this paragraph. So it's a good example where historically you'd have to use keyword searches to find this list. But of course the problem with keyword searches is the keywords that are used in this paragraph may not actually be in some of the documents you're looking for, even though they are conceptually related. I'll go ahead, I'll jump ahead to another document I found in here. Let's run this one more time. So I'll jump ahead to, I think it was document 78 that I found earlier. And this is one, it's talking about subject line regarding TV. And it's a sports line article about a football game. So it's describing lots of plays, and it's clearly about football, so it's related to what we're looking at. But if we notice, the word football doesn't actually appear in the text. So as tempting as it would be to just run a search for fantasy football when we're looking for that, you know, those words aren't actually always in the results, whereas the concept engine, you know, enough similar words are in the document to make it conceptually related. So it's another example of just where keyword searches would fail you. The concept searching will find what you're looking for. Okay, let's jump out of here and let's look at another set. I want to submit a whole document. So let's clear out this search. Instead of just we submitted a paragraph last time, I want to submit an entire document. So let's go to the beginning here of our case. I have one, Moltex Investor Network, and it's about Bear Stearns' predictions for telecom in Latin America. Let's go ahead and pull up this document. Okay, so this document is talking about it's a stock kind of email. It's talking about various stocks, and it's a bulk kind of email. So let's actually ask it. We'll right-click, submit it, find similar documents, and it's found it's 1,000 other conceptually related documents. So we can take a look here, market alerts, factory incentives at a year-long high, newsletters. So look, these are all actually kind of spam that it's found. So it's conceptually found. Some of it has to do with kind of stock info, but it's a lot of these bulk kind of spam emails. So Relativity isn't smart enough right away to kind of detect spam, but if we can identify a few kind of junk emails like this, we can then ask it to find conceptually similar ones. So now we've found these 1,000. Look, they're probably not relevant. Why don't we assign them out to maybe a junior reviewer, somebody who's new to the case, and let him look through them. So I'm assigning these 1,000 off, to a specific reviewer, and he can review them and just make sure that there really isn't anything important in here. He's going to be able to fly through these emails, maybe not even looking into the actual emails themselves, just reviewing the titles. One other nice example has to do with a privilege review. So, Leonie, what would be a typical way that you would conduct a review for privileged documents with your legal teams?
So for a traditional, I guess, privilege search without using any analytics technology, you would run searches for, the law firm name, the lawyers' names, their email addresses, and review those for privilege.
So let's pretend that's what we've done here. And I have in here the privileged document log. So this is how we developed that log. We ran those searches, we reviewed all the documents, yes or no privilege, and these were the ones that were actually privileged. Leonie, what would you think are maybe a potential problem that we might have with our methodology?
Well, that those names are not going to be in all of the emails. There might be a particular lawyer that hasn't been thought of. There might be personal email addresses that could be used, which may not be caught in the privilege search. So basically, not bringing back all potentially privileged documents.
So there are problems with kind of our methodology. Now, where analytics can help with that is we can actually feed in these 48 documents and ask it to find us other documents that are conceptually related. So we're effectively teaching it what privilege means. So how we do that is we actually ask it to just what are similar documents to these 48. And it comes back, it's up to 390 now. Let's filter out the ones that we've actually marked privilege and just the ones that we haven't reviewed yet. And here we have, another few hundred documents that it's saying, hey, look, these may or may not be privileged, but look, they're related to your privileged documents. You may want to have a look. We've seen there could be an instance where someone was typing up an email to send to counsel, but it was just a draft, so the to's and the froms weren't actually in there yet, so our search didn't find it. But because of the language they're describing in their draft is still similar to other privileged documents, this method would then find it. Okay, so that includes similar documents. Let's actually take a look at some of the clusters. So let's get rid of this, what we were just doing. One of the guys in here is Mike Maggi. He was a trader at Enron, and we have his email. And we have 1,900 emails from him. So, Leonie, how would you traditionally maybe start reviewing this gentleman's email?
Probably by date, chronological order.
I'd say that's a pretty common request we get. We say, find us this person's email and put it in date order. And we've talked about this before. Yes, you'll get a kind of date order understanding, but it's going to be jumping around between lots of different topics. And we all know how many emails we get in a day. It's an exercise in distraction, basically. So how clustering can help, we can actually submit these 1,900 emails to our clustering engine. It takes about a minute to cluster it, but I created it ahead of time. And what we get back is we have here Mike Maggi. It's the same 1,900 emails. But what it's done is it's split the documents into 10 different clusters. So now it titles the clusters, so it gives us a hint about what the documents are talking about. And sometimes that's very useful, and it's done it quite well. Other times it's a bit vague, and we have to actually click into the document, into the cluster, to start looking at the documents to see what it's talking about. So it gives us a couple things. It names the cluster, so this one, Rabarsky-Nelson. It tells us how many documents are in the cluster, 1,167. Then it tells us how conceptually similar the documents are to each other. So 1 being completely similar, 0 being not similar at all. So these are, pretty similar at 0.9. Let's start this by looking at cluster 4, Vu's error, which are 2 French words, and it is 97% similar. So these are very, very related documents to each other. So let's click in here. So we can look at some of the titles. It's BNP Paribas Commodity Futures Commitments of Traders Reports. So it looks like a lot of these all have to do with these BNP Paribas documents. And we may have a reviewer who is an expert in some of the financial aspects of this case, and he's been reviewing all those kind of documents. So what we'll do is we'll take these 98 and we'll assign them out to that reviewer, same way as we did earlier when we were looking at some of the spam. Assign out to that reviewer and save. Now let's look at one of the other clusters in here, Rybarski-Nelson. So these are two women who worked at Enron. Now, the title isn't actually that helpful because it's just two women's names. We don't really know what it's talking about. So what we'll do here is let's go ahead and jump in to some of the emails. So we'll go into this first email. Let's go to the beginning here. Amanda Rybarski and Mike Maggi. Let's go ahead and click into this one. So we get an email from Mike to Amanda. I like the glasses. From Amanda to Mike. Well, then I guess I'm going to have to wear them more often. Okay, so that's one document. Let's jump ahead a few. So here's another email. Jerk, I'm funny, don't you think? Nope. Okay, you're boring. And this is with another woman, Michelle Nelson. Let's jump ahead and look at a few more. You're boring. I'm going to call New York. No, you're not. Okay, more kind of casual kind of emails. Why? Because I want to go. You're killing me. All right, let's jump back out and see. Maybe we'll put this in date order and look at what was kind of early on in his emails. And we get another woman, Amanda Hubble. So let's go ahead and click into hers. Amanda Hubble and Mike. So, do you have good taste when it comes to picking out women's clothing? So, he's basically, I think we can conclude now, he's spending a lot of time flirting with, half the women in his office. Maybe I like trouble. You better be careful about drinks. I think you might be in trouble. So, Relativity has correctly lumped, these documents are all, these emails are all conceptually related. And what's useful for us is, well, it depends, I guess, whether these are relevant to our case. If this is a accounting fraud case, then these emails are probably not relevant, and we can either review them last or assign them out to that, junior reviewer to kind of blow through these to make sure that, secretly he isn't conspiring with one of the secretaries to, hide losses. The other kind of useful aspect would be, what if this was a sexual harassment lawsuit? These could be highly relevant to our case, and we'd want to review these first. So either way, it just breaks down sets of documents. So a really useful feature of clustering. Okay, now finally we'll have categorization. So I'll jump that over here. Here we have a list of categories of things we were interested in. In this case, while we were reviewing Philip Allen's emails, we've discovered that he has been running a side business, an investment property business, where he's been managing his various investments through his work email account. So we've identified 5 examples that we've fed in. So we were reviewing his email, we found these 5, and we said it had to do with property development. We want to see more that are related to this topic. So we've fed it into our categorization engine, and it's come back with several hundred more. And now we have to review these and tell it, yes, they're good, they are related, or no, they're not. And from that, we can keep feeding it in, and it'll keep finding us a more related document set. Remember, our traditional method is to use keywords, which has limitations. This really, each time we kind of refine it, we're really just teaching it, this document is relevant, this document isn't, so it's able to find other similar documents. Ultimately, you'll have a set of documents all related to property development that you can then rely on for preparing your case. Okay, well, I think that's pretty much the end of our presentation. Were there any questions? This would be a good time. If anyone has any questions, to work with that. Just give anyone a minute here if they had any questions for us, for myself or Leonie. You can type them in the bottom left. Okay, well, if nobody has any questions, we'll probably end the webinar. If you have any later on, of course, you could email them through. And Grace has mentioned that we will we have recorded this webinar, and we'll put the slideshow up as well, available to you. So thanks very much for attending. We've been doing a series of webinars, so expect to see one every month or so, and hopefully you can attend in the future.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much. Bye.